Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us on yet another conversation with. This afternoon, we're going to be talking with franchisor and franchisee, this time of Hand and Stone. What I'm looking forward in this conversation is this gives an example of a franchise owner who has successfully opened post-COVID and is navigating what do those outcomes look like and how can this information be beneficial back to the rest of the brand. So Bob and Patrick, thank you for giving us some time. Bob, I want to start with you. If you just want to give some general updates of how are things going, how are you seeing things progress? What is the good news that you're hearing from your seat?
Yeah, so thanks, Nick and Charles, for having Patrick and I on. Love to share some of these success stories with you guys. Certainly, the last few weeks have been critical for us because we're starting to open locations again, which we're excited about. We have 464 locations in North America. As of today, this morning, we had 116 currently reopened again. So that was exciting after having every one of them closed. And it looks like today we received some good news as well. The state of Texas has been granted permission for our category or massage and facial services to open as well. But Patrick was one of the first out in Utah, and we started great guns out there. So it's a very exciting time to have people back to work, and it's just lifting our spirits. And we're so excited about the teams and their efforts.
Patrick, if you want to talk about maybe the timeline, the progression of going from what you had to deal with when the storm of news is hitting our country as a business owner to navigating through to now being back and what it's like, because you would be in a small pocket of business owners who can talk about now post some of the messes that we're not through it, but some of the messes that we've had to deal with. What it's like to be operating a business today. So I would love some framework on that.
Sure. Well, when we had to close in, March? We had to close in March. We were closed all of April. It was a very scary time, very stressful. In my particular situation, we were just barely starting to break even. We've had the spa for about 2 years. And we're only breaking even, and then boom, not that that's not as important as all the other COVID-19 health issues, but on a personal note, it's just hard on all the employees, hard on me, not knowing when or if we get back open and what would the new world look like once we got open. And so that whole month of April was very scary. Worked on a lot of applying for loans and emergency help, and worked with corporate quite a bit to keep up on what they were seeing and what they thought we should do. They were a lot of help in giving us advice, and mostly we spent a lot of time just getting the spa cleaned and deep cleaned and shut down. And I kept one manager and one front desk person on the payroll to keep us afloat and keep in contact with the other employees and keep everybody's spirits up. And then finally, when we were able to get the notice from Utah that we could open in a week, just a frantic amount of work to get ready. And fortunately, all of my employees were interested except for a couple that had got other jobs. So we got everybody back. Customer response has been awesome. We would not have been able to reopen without the really dedicated help from corporate, especially like for the PPE equipment. Like if we didn't have the masks, it would have been really ugly. Getting the thermometer and some of the others, all the other stuff we needed to make sure our place was safe. And so, yeah, it's been quite a ride up and down a roller coaster, and it's currently looking really good, but it's had its low spots.
Patrick, so for those out there that aren't open yet, does it feel different now that you're reopened from before this all happened? Like, has your perspective changed? I know you mentioned about the support from corporate, which is great. How do you feel now overall? Like, what should other franchisees be expecting as they go through the process?
I feel very, very comfortable the way things are. I think you worry about a second wave or getting shut down again, but I think we learned so much in the first wave as a country, as a people, how to do social distancing and the masks and just being smarter, that I think even a second wave, I'm not as nervous about a second wave that it would completely shut us down again. I could be wrong, but I just feel like with all of the medical advances that are being made to understand this disease better, this virus better, and be able to handle it, I feel very optimistic about the future, I guess, of my business. I feel like the customers coming back was the biggest concern. Are they going to come back? And they have in a big way. So I'm pretty optimistic. I would say to other businesses that are about to reopen is just have your ducks in a row. If you see that it's coming close to the time where you could reopen, have a plan. And if you're not sure, talk to everybody you can. I spent a lot of time talking to some of my fellow Hand and Stone franchise owners here in Utah, in Bountiful and Draper, and we shared ideas and thoughts, and corporate was, of course, really helpful. And we all had questions, and what are we going to do? And we came up with answers, and with everybody's help, we were ready. And but if you're not ready, it's going to be a nightmare if you don't have the equipment and the people and everybody lined up.
Bob, do you get to a place where it's like a first sigh of relief? I mean, we're clearly not back in any form. I doubt there's a small pocket of brands, call it the first party delivery brands, that have not had to say they've been okay. But everybody else, it's like we're looking for something that shows that, there will be a recovery. Does knowing that Utah opens okay and strong for what it is, does that make you breathe a sigh of relief?
It's a huge sigh of relief. I guess I would equate it if you're a football fan or a baseball fan. If you're a baseball fan like you are, Nick, and love the Cubs, and your starting pitcher and the rotation goes down, and he's going to come back, right before the playoffs. Man, what a relief that is to have him come back right before the playoffs, and he's healthy, and that's a great sign. That's kind of what I feel here, except it's so much better because it's so much more fulfilling. It's not just a sport. As Patrick said, this is his life. Well, his business reopened. We on my end of the business and franchise development, I get to develop relationships with the folks, and then sometimes you don't see them for a while, and you wonder how they're doing. Then all of a sudden, something like this hits, and people are so busy with their lives, and then to see this happen like it has, and Patrick, I mean, the numbers are just reopening is great, and to hear Patrick talk a little bit positively about that, which is great, but the numbers themselves are fantastic. I mean, think about it. You have 50, 60, 70 customers coming into your door after a pandemic where people were fearful of touching, coughing, sneezing, breathing the same air. To have that as a positive in our business, and to see someone like Patrick go through, he didn't ramp up as quickly as we would have liked, or he would have liked, certainly. But this is a real positive sign for him moving forward in the business, because he had momentum going into it, and then that's tough when you work so hard to get that momentum, to get to a break-even point in your business, and then to have something like this just take the wind out of your sails. It's really nice to see this positive effect with people like Patrick and the other owners in Utah, and then the states that are now following them to open their businesses as well.
Bob, at the franchisor level, I mean, you guys have to be happy when you hear Patrick say something like, "We were ready when the time came to open up." That's a big deal. And along the way, Patrick was talking about PPE, thermometers and other things, but that's at this stage probably the biggest obligation of a franchisor, to make sure their franchisees are ready to go.
Yeah, you know what, Charles? I mean, I really, having Patrick, the way Patrick spoke about it was like, talk to as many people as you can. I think that really comes down, and it's been permeated from our management team, but more so this, I have to say, our CEO has done a tremendous job. Todd Leff was a former federal prosecutor. So talk about someone who likes to get ahead of problems. Talk about someone that likes to get in front of things. Talk about someone who's completely prepared. I mean, you're an attorney. I mean, you guys go through things that really hone the skill set that's different than others, and I think that permeated through the organization. So preparation. I mean, we were not only doing things for ourselves, but we wanted the other competitors in our business, like Massage Envy, Massage Heights. We wanted them at the table. We don't want them opening, less than we could, or vice versa. We want it to be, more of a message to the industry that, we are taking nothing for granted as even competitors, colleagues, however you'd like to title it. We all did the same thing, but you're right. There is nothing like that feeling, being part of an organization that has, and it's good to hear Patrick say that, been right behind the franchisees every step of this way.
Patrick, how has this tried you as a leader? I mean, obviously, to your staff and to your customers, you have to, as a business owner, you have to almost build confidence with them. How have you navigated this as a leader, and has this helped force you into a new realm as it relates to helping motivate your staff?
I think motivating staff is just comes with the job, and if you're doing a good job motivating your staff, something like this that doesn't change that. You still need to do a good job, but you need to be obviously very understanding of what your employees are going through too, because while you yourself as a business owner are worried about the big picture, if you don't worry about the little details for everybody, there's going to be problems. And so, like, some of the things that I did was just to make sure I spoke with my employees, to see how they were doing, and to ask their advice on certain things. Some employees didn't want to come back right away. They wanted to take a couple more weeks to see how the land lay, and I'm perfectly understandable that. We kind of just tied that into our go live plan, because I didn't think we could open up on the day we reopened at full speed. I figured, well, some people are going to want to stay home, so let's kind of open up in reverse of how we closed. And when we closed, we reduced the total number of hours on each day, and we closed on Mondays, and so we kind of had ramped it down right before we finally closed completely, and then we wanted to do the reverse when we opened back up, and so that some people didn't want to, some therapists didn't want to come in right away, or SAs or estheticians. That was going to be okay with me, because I didn't think we would need them all back. Now, as it turned out, I probably could have opened up full guns and that first week, but we went through that first week, and then the second week we were back to full schedule, and we only had a couple more employees at that time that still wanted another week, and I was happy to give it to them. You want your employees and your customers to feel safe and want to come back, and so you have to just be understanding of their outlook, and we were, and so I think that's just what you have to do as a business owner. You've got to put yourself in their shoes at times to understand what's going on.
Patrick, when those first customers came back, were you anxious? Was there like a sense of anxiety there?
Oh, yes. So the timing worked out. We kind of started on a Tuesday when we knew we were going to open the next Saturday. And so we had all the SAs come in that Tuesday. So we had just a few days to get things figured out. So the first day, all we did was call one-on-one every employee. And we asked, can you come back? Are you willing to come back? What days can you work? And we set up the schedules back into our point of sale system. And because you can't call your customers and get them booked without a schedule. And so that went really well. Everybody, except for a few that wanted a little more time, we started setting up in the schedules. And then the next day, we pulled the lever on the online booking. We allowed that, and we started calling every single member of our Hand and Stone franchise that are a member at Midvale, Utah, and it took 2 or 3 days, but the response was I was very scared of whether we'd get 20%, 30%. We were getting 80+% of people. Yeah, let me get right in there. I want a massage. I missed it, and so it went from what do we got? What's going to happen? To holy cow, this is great. We are rolling.
Bob, I mean, some of the indicators that come out of this is, can this business rebound? Yes. Are customers with discretionary income still willing to spend it, even though we're looking at economic conditions that are bumpy? Yes. So when you start piecing together some of the outcomes that are coming out of this, and frankly, can we even come back from this? And the answer is yes. So as you flip the mindset into developing the brand again, because there are plenty of future franchise owners that probably pump on the brakes and just say, I need to see an indicator that shows that there is success on the other side of this. And now they're there. Does this change your optimism for growth because you're seeing like the positive indicators come out of this?
Well, it does a couple things. Number one, it takes me back from an experience level. It takes me back to when my wife and I first invested in Hand and Stone. We came to this organization looking for a brand to land in and really become multi-unit owners. I wasn't looking for a career again. I was just going to be a multi-unit owner with my wife. It ended up working out. My wife became the franchisee. I became the vice president of franchise development and haven't looked back since. But when we decided to make the step towards investing in Hand and Stone as multi-unit owners, it was 2009. So we were on the tail end of one of the worst recessions this country's had in 50, 60 years. And, I remember that vividly because we were down to basically our retirement plans, and we took a shot. I believed in the management of the organization, the founder, and Todd Leff, our CEO at the time, and still is. And I believed in this brand, and it was a local brand in New Jersey. And when we invested, that could have, had this gone wrong, it could have been horrible. But I remember the feeling of investing, and I think it's very similar today. Now, although it's different, but to answer your question, it breathes an entirely new life, I think, and optimism in our thought process. Our philosophy has always been over communicate, continue to do the right thing, share success stories with your franchisees and have them learn from them. So we're continuing to do that, but absolutely having gone through this, you can hear it in Patrick's voice. He'll have, it's a microcosm of what we're doing, but certainly his team will be stronger for it. We're going to have benefits throughout this industry that we haven't seen before. There are going to be more massage therapists available. When we look at what's happening now, there's other organizations that are not as strong as ours. There's a lot of independents that probably won't be able to rebound, but we'll be able to help them too, because we'll be able to bring some of their employees into the fold and get with an organization that has an infrastructure and support throughout North America. And we were the number one brand as far as locations average. So we haven't closed a business. This is our fourth year, going into our fourth year now that we have not closed a spa. So there's a lot to look forward to, Nick, and it's a great question. Sorry I couldn't answer it in a shorter fashion.
Now, the not only for your industry, but everything we've been through is just one big reset button, Bob. And so it seems like in addition to the therapists and the independents, which we don't want them to suffer, but there are businesses that are going to be closing. I would imagine too, though, that this changes the real estate landscape for you also, no?
I think the real estate, the employee pool, certainly labor pool, as well as financing, I think are the three major topics that, we look at and say, wow, there's some opportunity there. Absolutely. From a real estate perspective, we're seeing a lot of positives come out of this. Obviously, the landlords have been in a great position over, the last 9-10 years. And, it's we're kind of excited about the fact that we're going to have some more leverage, some bargaining power, because there are going to be a number of brands and whatever. I'm not going to pick on any industry, but there's a number of industries that are going to be really hurt by this, and retail space will come available. And that's one thing. And if you're a landlord, that's one thing you never want to see is a dark store. So we will absolutely have the opportunity not only to do that, Charles, but we're in a position right now, and I'm doing a webcast tomorrow on conversions. We have recently gone into upwards of, we're in double digits now, as a number of competitors' sites that they didn't succeed in that we've gone into. So now that's a whole nother opportunity in itself. And we have a number of opportunities around the country where we're going to be negotiating in a former competitor's location to go into that location. The franchisee will save, well over $150,000 in startup costs, because there's basically already an existing spa there. We just have to retrofit it to make it look like a Hand and Stone. So yes, I would say the opportunities are going to be quite extensive as we move on in this process.
Charles, let's circle back over to you for final thoughts.
So for me, I don't know if I have any final thoughts other than it's just great to see that Patrick's open again. And really this reflects a reality that I think every brand is going to experience, which is that there's going to be a point of reopening. And at the franchisor level, your job is to make sure your franchisees say they were ready to open, just like Patrick.
And Patrick, final thoughts?
It's not something I ever want to go through again. I don't know if anyone would want to go through this again anywhere in the country or the world. But it's like anything, it's a learning experience. And I don't, kind of touching on what Bob had to say, I think some spas are going to go out of business, not Hand and Stone specifically, I'm saying, but in Salt Lake City area in Utah, there are so many spas, and it's a very tight market. And if you can come out of this with your head up and your employees backing you, there are opportunities to grow. We sold like 20 memberships in the last week, and these aren't people coming back; these are brand new memberships. That tells you, there's just a lot of growth here still, and it could be even better because people need to find another spa. So if you are in the right place and you're ready to grow and have your employees to support that growth, you do even better.
And Bob, final thoughts?
One, I'm happy for Patrick. Obviously, we're on this program together with you guys, and thank you for inviting us. But I want everyone else to kind of talk to. If they were to talk to us tomorrow, I would like all of our franchisees to be thinking the same thoughts that Patrick is. More positive. He's coming at it's kind of behind him now. If it did happen again, he feels confident, and I just wish that for all of our franchisees moving forward.
Appreciate that. And my final thoughts are this: if you're listening to this, I think there's a few interesting pulls from this. One is the value of chains, and I'm not sure that maybe the American public supported chain brands as much before, but you can see what happens when you're a part of a chain. There's more resources that are there to help figure out how do we get through this, and that's now impacting the independents. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with franchise business industry versus non or licensee industries versus independent, because independents are not set up for success when a storm comes. So I'm fascinated by that. Secondly, from a category standpoint, I think some of the indicators that Patrick is bringing up are quite fascinating too, because 20 new members in the first or second week of reopening is an amazing indicator. But I think it's specific to the category that if you're a business investor, you might be a little bit more category conscious on the other side of this. The reality is this has caused a lot of stress for every human being. Patrick just said, I do not want to go through this again. One of the solves for stress is massage therapy. So if you look at the categories that are going to be beneficial on the other side of it, it might be a shift. For years, it's been education, health and wellness, those probably don't go away. And then whatever the new hot thing is. But if you look back in history of time, you're going to have to find sustainability as a buyer in the category that you're buying into. And here the indicators are there. And lastly, I think what Charles said is vastly important. I mean, we're not there from a media market landscape yet where the media is covering the positivity that comes out of this. We are still very stuck in the political landscape or the negativity. But it's so refreshing to hear someone finding success, and it might not be at the levels it was pre-COVID, but the early indicators are showing that this is moving back in the right direction, that we can return after we get punched down. And that is quite refreshing to hear. So really, really enjoyed this conversation. Patrick and Bob, thank you for your time. Patrick, we wish you the best of luck and looking forward to hearing what happens over the next few months.
Thank you.
Take care, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Gentlemen.
Take care.